If it's a weekend in August, late August at that, it means I'm canning. So I'm starting my bread and butter pickles today. So I thought I'd take you along for the ride. I'm using my big roaster pan right now because my big silver bowl hasn't made it to me back yet. So what I have here is I've got about 6 pounds of cucumbers, the smaller cucumbers, and they're cut into about 1/4 inch slices. And I've got 3 pounds of thinly sliced onions with that. It's hard to see the onions. And 5 or 6 cloves of garlic. I mixed that with a cup of canning salt, not table salt, canning salt, and covered it with ice. And I'm going to just let this hang out here for about 3 hours, 3 or 4 hours. So tonight after dinner, I'll start doing the rest of this and I'll bring you along. But this is the beginning process. We just got to let this chill out here for a while. No pun intended. Then we'll be back to make the pickles. I love this time of year. Okay, I'm ready for the next step in my pickles. They've been sitting now for about 4 hours, so this is good. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove as much ice as possible. Sometimes I find little pieces of onions on the ice cube. I wouldn't really have to do this because I'm going to rinse this anyway, but it just is easier for me to pour it into my colander here. Alright, I've got most of the ice out. Next thing I'm going to do is find my garlic pieces because I don't want to cook those. So I'm going to remove the garlic that I put in. Remember, I had, I don't know, 6 or 7 cloves of garlic in here. So, here's one. And I'll get them all eventually. I have a glove on only because I cut my thumb last night. Here's another one. And this is salt water. I don't want to have salt water in there. You know the old saying about pouring salt into a wound? Yeah, I don't want to do it. Here's another one. Sometimes I try to remember exactly where in the pot these things are, but I mixed it up after I put the garlic in. Here's another one. What happens sometimes if you cook garlic, it becomes bitter. And this is a sweet pickle. We don't want anything bitter in here. So, all right, let me hunt for the other couple garlic pieces, and then I'll be back. Okay, I got all the garlic out, and now I have my pickles all in. Oh, there's one. I thought I had it all. There we go. I have my pickles in colander here. So I'm just giving these a good rinse, and then I'm going to let it drain for a little bit while I'm getting the rest of my ingredients together. Now the recipe that I'm using is it's not exactly the one that's in the ball book. It's one that I've used for years, though. I think I got this from my Aunt Margie. And my Aunt Marge canned a lot of stuff. My mother wasn't a canner, but Aunt Margie was. And I was just always amazed at how much stuff she had on her shelf. She lived out in the country. We lived in the city. I grew up thinking it was just a country thing. But, you know, later in life, after I had my own kids, I discovered what a valuable skill it is to have. I remember Aunt Margie had a room on the back of her house that was her canning pantry, and I just remember when she wanted to fix dinner, she'd send one of the kids out, you know, get me a jar of this, get me a jar of that. I just always thought it was so cool. So really, my Aunt Margie can be credited for being the first person that influenced me to start canning. So, I don't think any of her daughters can, but it'd be, you know, my daughter doesn't either, so, but I think my daughter would be open to learning. All right, I'm going to finish rinsing these pickles off, and then I'll be back after I gather up the rest of my ingredients. Okay, I think I have all of my ingredients here. So, this calls for 4 cups of sugar. Don't wig out. This isn't a Weight Watchers recipe. This is old-fashioned bread and butter pickles. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, let me close my sugar back up. I keep my sugar in a Ziploc bag or a plaid bag. It's just easier for me to maneuver, especially when I'm doing stuff like this. Okay, the next thing, let me put this back. The next thing is 4 cups of white vinegar. Okay, 4 cups of white vinegar. Make sure it is not cleaning vinegar. I did that once. I pulled the cleaning vinegar off the shelf. This says 5% acid strength. That's what you want. You want 5% acidity. So 4 cups. 1, 2, 3, 4. I never try to remember these recipes by heart because it's really, oh, where'd you go? Really important that we do this exactly, otherwise it won't turn out. Now I need 2 tablespoons of mustard seed. Looks like I'm going to need more mustard seed. I'm using my 2 tablespoon measure. And then I need 1½ tablespoons of celery seed. On the mustard, make sure it's mustard seed, not ground mustard. So here's 1 of celery seed. It smells so good already. And a ½ tablespoon. Then it's calling for a tablespoon of pickling spice. This is all kinds of good stuff. I wish you could smell this, the allspice and the cloves. Oh. I might put a little bit more in here usually. Okay, and then a teaspoon of turmeric. That's what gives it a really nice color. Now I have my jars sitting in hot water just from the tap. Now when I had a gas stove, I would have that on the heat. But since I'm not real familiar with this glass top stove and I'm not sure the weight, that canner right now is pretty heavy, and with what I'm going to do with the pickles here. So here's a teaspoon of turmeric. I'm done with that. And I had the vinegar out. I poured a little dish of vinegar to wipe the rins with after I filled them. So let me get my spatula. I'm going to give this a good stir. And let's see what the directions are. Okay, so it says bring to a boil over medium-high heat. Let me get that out of the way. Over medium-high heat. So I'm gonna do this at a 5. I'm just stirring it up to get the sugar dissolved. Now, also, I normally would use a much bigger pot than what I'm using. This is the biggest non-metal pot that I have right now, or non-reactive pot, I want to say, because we're using a lot of vinegar, so we don't want a reactive pot, you know, something that could discolor or, you know, make a bitter taste. Okay, so I'm just going to let that come to a boil, and then we'll boil it for 10 minutes. While that's going on, I'm going to put everything that I don't need anymore away to get it out of the way. I just opened up a new pack of lids. Now the jars I have are brand new jars. They are the Golden Harvest jars. The lids would probably be okay, but I'm partial to the Ball or Bernardin lids. Ball and Bernardin are the same thing. I'm very partial to these. I've never had one fail, a seal fail when I've used the Ball lids. Sometimes when I've used the Golden Harvest, I have had failed seals. And of course, after you put all this work into canning something, you don't want anything to fail. So, all right, I'm double checking. I have all my ingredients in, and I'm going to let this boil, and then I will be back for the next step. I wish you could smell this. This smells so good. This has been boiling now for a few minutes. I think I've got about 5 more minutes to go on the boil. And then I will add the pickles gradually to this and stir it and bring it to a boil and boil it for 1 minute. So I will bring you back when I get to that point. But this smells so wonderful. Okay, my beeper just beeped. I've been at this boiling for 10 minutes. Let me turn this off. So I'm going to gradually now start adding the pickles to this vinegar mixture. Now, the pickles, you know, shrink up in size as you cook this. So the directions say to add the pickles to the vinegar solution, and then we're going to bring it back to a boil, and we're going to boil it then for 1 minute. At that point, then I'll take it off the heat and I'll start filling the jars. But since my pot is kind of small, I'm doing this gradually, and I'm giving it a little stir after each addition. Helps to actually hit the pan. And as the pickles shrink up, it adds a little bit more liquid to the solution also. Now this recipe says I should get about 8 pints of pickles out of this. So I have 8 jars prepared. That's all that my canner fits at one time. So if I have enough for a second batch, I'll do that, but I'm hoping, or what I might do is just put them in the refrigerator. My pot's getting pretty full. I'm not quite done adding stuff. Remember, this is the pickle or the sliced cucumbers, and they were the smaller cucumbers. There was a number that the guy that I buy them from, maybe number 5, I don't know, but they're the smaller, medium size. You know, like our slicing cucumbers are that big. These are this big. They're not miniature like you would have for a gherkin. Somewhere in between. So these look to be like maybe 1.5 inches around. And it's going to take a while for these to come to a boil because my pot is smaller and it's pretty packed. So let me bring you back when we get to that point. I have almost all the pickles in there now, but I need to let this boil for a minute, so I'll bring you back when I get to that point. Alright, I wanted to show you this. It's cooking. It hasn't come to a boil yet, but I wanted to show you the difference of color. These have been underneath the solution for a while, and you see how it's the color is changing on the pickle. It gets to be a lighter green. These are some of the more recent ones that I added to the pot. I'm going to try to get all these pickles underneath the solution, and they're all going to turn that lighter color of green eventually after the pot starts to boil. I'm not sure of the boil part yet though, but if you do this and you get concerned because your pickles change in color, that's perfectly normal. That's what it's supposed to do. So I'm just waiting for my pot to boil, and I'll be back. Okay, I have taken the pickles now off of the heat, and I'm ready to start canning with my jars. So there's my pickles, and I have my jars up and ready. So for anything that's like pickles, anything fermented like this, usually about anything that you water bath process, I'll explain that in a second, you want a 1/4 inch headspace in the jars. So I've moved my jars over to the stove now, and I have it just on low heat. I'm not going to turn it up to high until I'm just about done with everything. So I'm going to give this a stir, and I'm going to fill my jar. I put my funnel in. I don't know if you can see this. My funnel in. And I'm going to pick up the pickles and the juice all together and get it in the jar, the 1/4 inch headspace. Now I have the handy dandy tool. I think I showed this to you before. This measures my headspace. So this first notch here is a 1/4 inch, and it's marked for you. So I just put that on the edge of the jar, and the liquid should hit the bottom of that notch. Before I do that, I take the other end of that tool I just showed you, and I kind of push it around on the inside of the jar to make sure there aren't any air bubbles. An air bubble can cause a bad seal. Oh, that reminds me. I wanted to show you this. I opened up my new can, my new thing of lids. You probably are not going to be able to see this. There's a little orange piece right there. This lid would probably be okay, but I looked at the bottom of it, and it looks like part of that is on that rim. I'm not going to use this lid just to be safe. I'd much rather be safe than sorry. You know, after spending all day getting these pickles done, I don't want to have somebody that's not going to seal. Okay, I'm going to try to show this to you as best I can. I've got this in here, and I'm kind of pushing the pickles down now. So I'm taking this end of my tool, and I'm going to go all the way around the jar to remove any air bubbles that might be in there, maybe down to center. Push everything back down again. Then I'm going to remove my funnel. And I'm going to take my tool and I'm going to measure. And it looks like I can put just a little bit more liquid in there. So I'm going to do that. A little bit more. If you don't have one of these tools, usually the top ring here, around that rim, is about a 1/4 inch headspace. Okay, that looks pretty close. So now I'm going to take a clean rag, or I just have, you know, one of my dish towels here. I'm going to dip it in the vinegar, then I'm going to go all the way around with the vinegar. This will clean off any sugary solution that's on there. Let me put you back over here because I'm going to both hands to cap. Okay, so that'll clean off any sugary solution. I'm going to put a lid on and then a ring. And then we just do it finger tight. We don't, force it on there. I usually have to hold it with the cloth. Then I don't touch the jar again because the jar is hot. And I'm just going to put it over here in my canner and wait for me to fill the rest of the jars. All right. So let me finish the rest of these, and then I'll be back when I start putting them down into the water. All right, I got 7 pint jars out of that batch. I have a light on my stove that keeps going out. So I have a little bit of vinegar left in this bowl. I'm going to throw it into the water in the canner. That just helps keep the jars clean, and in case there's any leakage or anything. I don't think there should be. I turned my heat up to high. I'm going to cover this. When it comes to a full boil, I will start the timer for 10 minutes, and then I'll be back. All right, it sounds like it's boiling. Let's check. Oh yeah. Okay, it's boiling, so I'm going to set the timer. I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes. And then I'll be back. All right, my 10-minute timer just went off, so I turned off my heat on the canner. And I'm going to take the lid off. And it's still boiling really good. I might want to mention that whenever you do this, you make sure you take the lid off away from you because that steam is hot. I'm going to let this sit here for, on the stove, I'm going to let it sit for 10 minutes before I take it out. I want this to stop boiling. And I need to get the air circulated here a little bit so that the jars don't go into shock when it hits the cool air, because it is cool in here today. So the heat is off. I'm going to let it set another 10 minutes, and then I'm going to take them out of the canner. Okay, as you can see, it stopped boiling. It's been sitting here about 10 minutes, and I'm going to start taking the jars out. I'm just going to lift them up. Grab that like that. And then I'm going to take this over to where I'm going to let them cool. This is quite of a far walk for me, but the kitchen's not really set up yet. So, and we're just going to let it sit there. I'm going to do that to each of these jars. And then I'll show you when I get them all out. Okay, they've all sealed already. They popped as soon as I got them over here. So they're going to just hang out here for about 24 hours, and then I'll move them to the shelf. So here is the first batch of pickles that I've done this year. Bread and butter pickles. I will do some more of these, probably one more batch, and then also a batch of dills. Okay, that's it for my canning video. Well, I hope you enjoyed my can with me for the bread and butter pickles. Give it a thumbs up, like, share. If you'd like to see more canning videos from me, let me know, and I'll be happy to oblige. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you later.